2 inches, maybe 3, if that.
Are you kidding me? You don't
Yeah,
have,
we didn't get much of it, at least not where I'm at in Michigan. I don't know how other parts of the state fared, but we were okay actually. I know it was a pretty major one. You got nailed, right?
yeah, like I swear, at least 14 inches, at least. It's crazy.
Wow.
I think it's still snowing right now. Anyway,
Wow.
it's not a that I don't like it or anything. I love the snow. It's why I live on the East Coast. You know, I love the weather change. I just don't like having to shovel it. Now, obviously,
Right.
you know, like I'm with my back and all that, and I had to hire the kid next door to come shovel. Anyway, I would love to have Chris come shovel my stuff because you know he's the god of the North, and he could just make with a snap of his fingers, and the snow would disappear. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing super. We had 3 inches. Initially, the forecast said 10. And as soon as the forecast said 10, I figured we get 1 or 2 inches. We got 3. I went out and shoveled. And in Virginia, you really don't have to. You just wait a day and it's gone anyway. But I'm like you. I grew up in Massachusetts. I want to shovel.
Yeah.
And so I did. You had to get out there quick to do it, though. But I did. And so I feel like a human being.
All right, a man who has a different idea of shoveling, and he's probably shoveled Dexter out of a few graves himself. HorrO from PromoteHorror.com and Dexter, the intern. How you guys doing tonight?
Oh, we're good. And yeah, that's about the only shoveling we've done around here. We have no snow. It's a little cold, but that's okay. Everybody freaks out when it gets just, like under, probably even under 60, which is nothing for you guys. But yeah, we're excited. Me and Dexter have been conversing about Women in Horror Month. We're excited and what we're going to do to celebrate and pay tribute to all the women out there.
Amen to that. So many to choose from, and it's going to be a great month, and especially on social media with all the praise that is well deserved for all the different women that not just the actresses, but the people behind the scenes, the directors, the writers, producers, and people like Muse that take time out of their day to put horror content out there. We're friends with so many of these wonderful women. But yeah, we will be definitely sharing a lot on social media and just praising, as said. Anyway, we got a really great show planned for you. If you heard us on the YouTube channels, we just conducted our interview with the cast from They Reach. This is an awesome movie directed by Silas Dahl, who also joined us on the interview. Mary Madeline Rowe, Morgan Chandler, and Eden Campbell were actors and actresses on the film. They joined us as well. Really cool interview. Lots of fun. If you like, actually, I want to ask you guys a question real quick. And I kind of brought this up at the beginning of the interview. I feel like there's this big wave of horror films that are being. I don't know if it hasn't been there before. It's been there before, but we got these young actors, these teens, the young teens, and now they're the ones that are the protagonists in these films, and they're the ones that are fighting evil. Do you guys like that better than the final girl or the final guy, or do you like the kids? What is your taste, Muse? What do you like?
I like all of it, honestly. I really dug Jessica's character in this one because, I think that it's cool to see, girl power, women power in movies. Definitely, for sure. She's definitely is the one of the main reasons why things end up the way they do, and it's fantastic. And she's got, as our listeners will be watching the movie, we've given out the information for the movie. They'll see what I'm talking about. I love how she bucks she kind of like destroys the stereotypes of what young teen girls are supposed to be. And I think that there's so much pressure to be a certain way when you're young like that. And I think just being yourself is hard enough rather than fitting what somebody else thinks you should be. And I really like it. I like all of it. I'm just a huge horror fan, and I like the Stranger Things Goonies vibe. I think that's cool, and it's a lot of fun. And I think this is one that you could watch with your family. I mean, if you have some younger teens, I don't know. I'm not sure what everybody's guidelines are.
It's kind of depends on how old they are.
I would, but I guess that's why I'm not a parent. I would definitely if I had like a 13, 14-year-old, I definitely would let them watch this. I don't know about real young, like maybe like 5 or 6. No, it's a little bit much for a young child, but maybe like young teens or whatever. I think it's I would do it. I would allow it. But I mean, that's just me, and probably why I may or may not have kids. Well, actually, I don't, but maybe it's a good reason. But I don't know. But I would probably be a little lenient because I'm a huge horror fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be. I mean, I'm not going to go let them watch Human Centipede, obviously, or anything like that. But I like it. I like all of it.
Chris, do you like the films with the kids as the leads, or would you like the damsels in distress? What do you
Damsels in distress.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. No, I don't want to see kids. I'm a lot older than you. My kids are 21 and 24.
Mhm.
I've been to so many orchestra concerts, so many plays, so many. I mean, you think you got a night where you can come home and relax, and you got to go see these 8-year-olds sing, and they can't sing. And after doing that 300 times, you don't want to see any more kids at all. And I am so happy that 21 and 24. Now, there are exceptions like today's movie that we're going to talk about. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But there are exceptions, of course. Psycho Goreman, which we did 3 weeks ago. But as a whole, I don't want to see any Stand By Me stuff. Believe me, I want adults. And I've told my kids already that when they have kids, I don't want to see them until they're 21 years old. And so that's how I feel. So there.
And how about you, HorrO?
Well, I think I got my big child right here, Dexter. But besides him, there's something, I guess, growing up in the 80s, you still have a soft spot for some of these movies. But I think I enjoy them most when the kids can kind of not only be themselves, but kind of do things you don't expect. Like in this movie, you see them kind of get gory a couple of times.
Yeah.
When they're not afraid to really dive into the horror of the moment. I mean, we've seen some where, they're kids in the movie, but nothing really happens to them. And then that's, it's kind of like, oh, well, no, well, why have kids then? Why have it be horror? Just do an adventure movie and leave it on its own. But when we see movies where the kids can get actively involved in the actual horror that's going on now and not be afraid. I think last time, we kind of took it to the extreme where me and Chris were like, yeah, more babies should die in these movies. Yeah. Maybe that's a little much for America, but, overseas, they have all these crazy things where kids are involved and kids are actually dying in the movies. I mean, that's something we don't see. So I guess it's the other extreme to it. But growing up in the 80s, I don't mind it. And I just want to see the kids, a little blood on them from time to time. I mean, and if one of them dies, one of them dies. I mean, it's part of horror.
It's part of horror. I always think about like Lost Boys, because they were kids and they got dirty and they got their hands dirty a little bit, and that was like, it was hardcore. If you think of something like Monster Squad was more on the Goonies side, and I loved Monster Squad, but it wasn't like they couldn't make that movie like a rated R, like a Chris feature. They had to keep it really lighthearted. So, but pick your poison there, and I think that's why I kind of like Stranger Things as well. And this movie really reminded me of more of a hardcore version of Stranger Things. So definitely check out the movie, check out the interview at the last part of our show. I'm going to kick the show off with the Fear the Beer of the Week. I'm really excited to get this one. I am a sucker for redheads, man. I love redheads. I think I don't know what it is, but this one is called, and I hope I say it right, it's Ginger Ninja. Look at that can there. It's got this redhead on there with this nice curly hair. It's a Red India Pale Ale brewed with fresh ginger. And this was out of, what is the brewery? Black Hog Brewing Company. So let's try this bad boy. That's a beautiful sound. Wow. That's actually really like fresh. Like it's that's good beer. It's really got the ginger taste. I've never had a taste like that with ginger. Anyway, before I get into the horror movie flashback, I want to just say what's up to our listeners and our people on the YouTubes. John, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Luna Redcoat, Boston actress. Who else am I missing here? Jenny Lee, thank you so much for hanging out with us. You know who you are, Jenny. Jen Face. I got a really cool horror movie flashback because I want to kind of incorporate two things, and it just so happens to be, I didn't notice this until right now when I looked at my notes, but it is Black History Month. There are so many great African American horror actors and producers, directors. We're seeing a really cool movement with Jordan Peele making these movies and with these horror movies in Twilight Zone and stuff like that. Candyman's coming out. So many great films coming out. But one person I just want to recognize real quick who celebrated a birthday. He did pass away in 1988. But Dwayne Jones, we know him from Ben. He was a very resourceful Ben in Night of the Living Dead. So Dwayne Jones, born 1937, this day in 1937, February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. Happy birthday to my sister as well. My sister is born on Groundhog's Day. Anyway, Dwayne Jones, thank you so much for all that you've done for the horror community. Night of the Living Dead is one of the essential films that you need to watch if you are a horror fan. So I'm going to move it on. Muse, do you have any input on Night of the Living Dead or Dwayne? I think we might have spoke about Dwayne Jones once before. I'm not sure.
I am a huge Dwayne Jones fan. We probably have. I'm a big fan. So yeah, happy birthday to Dwayne Jones. And just a quick little story, real 2-second story. I remember my mom telling me the first time she saw Night of the Living Dead, because it came out in 1968. So she was a young adult, and she said she had walked to the theater downtown, and she had to walk back by herself after watching it, and it was dark. And I could just imagine my mom. She was actually a huge horror fan, but she's not as big of a horror fan these days, which is weird because she's the one that introduced me to horror. But she passed the torch. She said it was the most terrifying walk home she's ever had. So she said it was just, she didn't want to walk home by herself. Of course, she was by herself. She didn't have any, some of her friends, I think, went a different direction. She had to walk the last couple blocks by herself. And she said it was harrowing.
Oh, no. All right, Muse, hold on one second. We're going to get right into what did we call it? The Muse's.
We're going to do it.
The shit.
The sinister shit.
The
sinister shit. Dexter's foul mouth over here.
Oh, my God. All right, hold on one second.
Gosh, you're going to make me spit my drink out.
I know. Let me get my little screen up here so you guys can see this. Screen one here, share. All right, why is that not coming up here? All right, we're not going to have the view. Go ahead, Muse. Go ahead and take it away. If I get it up,
I can see it in the corner.
I'm having problems getting it up, for the first time ever. So.
EMI, okay. Yeah. All right. All right. So this week's Sinister Six revolves around not so much movies, but characters from movies, and even more so supporting horror characters in movies. So I'm going to swing back around to the guys after I'm done, but I notice there's a lot of great supporting characters in horror movies. And we're going to be, if you've been watching a little while ago, we interviewed the cast from They Reach, and Cheddar was a pretty memorable supporting character there in the film. They were all great. But we often really love the supporting characters in horror films. So I thought, what about breaking down my top 6 favorite supporting characters in horror films, and maybe characters. These are definitely characters I would have loved to see get their own movie. Maybe a little more backstory or a little bit more about what they'd been up to before the events in the movie that we know them from. So the first character is, you're going to all know, I'm sure all horror fans are going to know all these, but is Sex Machine from Dusk Till Dawn. And if we remember Sex Machine, he's played by very memorably by Tom Savini, and he's got the crotch gun. And I mean, he doesn't have a big part, but it's a very memorable part. And a lot of horror fans really loved his scenes in this movie. And of course, he ends up getting bit and turning and causing all kinds of havoc. But I was bummed when he turned. I was hoping he would kind of fight alongside the family and the Gecko brothers, but he gets turned, alas. So we don't get to see that, but I would love to see a Sex Machine origin movie. Like, what was he up to before he got to the titty twister? I want to know. I know all of you want to know. I want to know because he was definitely, some kind of a crazy character beforehand. So I would have loved that. And I would have loved to see Tom Savini, obviously reprising the role. I couldn't imagine anybody else playing this character. So definitely Tom Savini there for the first one. The second character is Tangina Barrons from Poltergeist. And of course, we all know she's the psychic that they call in to help the family when Carol Ann is taken to the other side. And she's got so many great moments in Poltergeist. I'd actually read the book. There was a book written before. I don't know if it was before or maybe it was a companion to the movie. It might have been just a novelization, but it goes a lot more in depth to Tangina's character and all of the ordeals that she had leading up to the Freeling family with Poltergeist. and how much the experiences drained her and how much it actually took from her. So you really get more of an in-depth look at Tangina in the book. So I would recommend, if you can find that novelization. I think I bought it on eBay for like $6 or something like that, and it's a great novelization if you're a big fan of the movie, and a good companion. But I would love to see her in her own movie, maybe some of the other experiences she had dealing with the supernatural and all of her gifts that she had, all of her psychic gifts. So definitely that one. The third characters that I would love to see get their own movie are the Frog Brothers from the Lost Boys. Now, we're introduced to them in the Lost Boys, and they had obviously been aware of the vampire problem in Santa Carla for quite a while. It's kind of briefly spoken about that, but we don't really see much other than them helping Sam and Michael deal with what's going on with them in their situation with David and his crew. But I would have loved to see maybe some more adventures with the Frog Brothers and the other things that they had gotten up to. I know there were sequels after this one that feature Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander reprising their roles, but I would have loved to see maybe like a spinoff, maybe from the Lost Boys, with just the Frog Brothers and seeing what they're up to and everything like that, because they were definitely in some shit before the events in the Lost Boys. They were very aware of what was going on. Number 4 is probably the one character I would be the most excited about, and that is Quint from Jaws. This man had so many iconic scenes in this movie. His death was even iconic. I was crushed by his death the first time I saw this movie. I didn't want him to die, but he does die quite a bloody fashion. But he has so many.
He was crushed too.
He was crushed, much like this can, unfortunately. It was a sign of things to come. Unfortunately, Bruce the shark there, Jaws, got a hold of him near the end and just broke my heart. But he's got quite a memorable monologue. He's got quite a speech in the movie talking about how he survived on the Indianapolis. And he was only one of, I think, about 300 survivors from that crew. And there were quite a few men there. And it's such a iconic speech. And so it brings a tear to your eye. He just sells it the whole way. And I would love to see what Quint was up to before the event unfolded in Jaws, because he was making his living as a man who hunts sharks. And I could just see this guy having such a colorful backstory, or, whether it's a prequel or even if it's after, well, it wouldn't be after the events of Jaws because he was dead, unless it was like in the afterlife. But I'd done a little digging about Quint, and apparently he was, I don't know, this is on Wikipedia, so some of it may be right, some of it may not be. I don't know exactly how accurate some of the information is, because I know there's been some mistakes there in the past on Wikipedia, but he I guess, supposedly the character of Quint was really into the paranormal, and he actually attributed the sharks' choosing of Amity as some kind of there was some kind of paranormal activity going on there or something like that. He was really into pagan culture and things like that. So he was really into looking at the darker side of everything. So I thought that was really interesting, because we definitely don't get that in the movie. I don't know if that's maybe featured more in Peter Benchley's novel. I'm not sure. But I thought that was a really interesting angle. And I would have loved to see that explored in kind of like his own movie, maybe a little bit more of the occult side of what he was studying and how that tied into what he was involved in. But he's such a great character, and Robert Shaw was just absolutely fantastic as Quint, one of my favorite all-time movie characters.
Wait. You got to take a sip of my beer and cheers to him. Here's to swimming with bow-legged women, right?
Yes. I know. I'm like, oh man, I don't have a beer. I feel so left out. But that's perfect. Yes. And the fifth character is Hudson from Private Hudson from Aliens. And I mean, Bill Paxton, you knew he was going to be on this list somewhere. I love Bill Paxton. It's no secret. I'm talking about him off and on all the time on Twitter. But he didn't have a big part, but I would have loved to see him get his own movie, maybe with the other Marines. I don't know. I would just be fine with Private Hudson and Bill Paxton. And interestingly enough, I don't know how accurate this was, but they were going to do an Aliens part 5 or something. And Paxton was supposed to come back as Hudson. And now we didn't see, I mean, he died in Aliens, if memory served me, but I don't know if they showed his death. So, I mean, maybe that was how they were going to do it, or if it was going to be a prequel origin deal or what, but they were going to bring Paxton back as Hudson. I'm not sure exactly how that was going to go, but, he passed away in 2017. So obviously that wasn't going to happen, but I would have loved to see it. I would have loved to see him get his own movie. I'm a huge fan. And he's got some of the most iconic lines in the movie. And I love Ripley, and Michael Biehn is great, but Hudson stole the show there. Yeah. I mean, Yeah, he did. Game over.
Game over, man. Game over.
The ultimate badass.
I gotta tell you a story real quick about him. I was at Comic-Con and he was in a movie with Tom Cruise. I think it was that Live Die Repeat movie. I forgot what it was called, but I think that was it. But he was in it anyway. They were promoting their movie, and Tom Cruise just kept saying it over and over again. Game over, man. Can you do it again? Can you do it again? and it was just great. He's such a great character and such a great movie.
I tell you what, I've heard multiple stories of fans of Bill Paxton on Twitter that have met him that say he is just one of the coolest dudes ever. Was just a really real, down to earth guy. Just one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And we really lost something when Paxton passed away. So I would definitely love to see him in a Hudson role. And my next character, and I think my last character, is Bub from Day of the Dead, Bub the zombie. I loved Bub. I mean, he was definitely, one of the most featured zombie in that film. They were doing experiments with him, and they were trying to kind of like find a way to acclimate the zombies into, alongside humans in society. Because obviously they were thinking we may have to learn how to live with the situation because it's so the whole zombie virus outbreak it's widespread. So, of course, the scientist there was trying to get Bub to remember his humanity, and Bub really seemed to understand at a lot of points in the movie what was going on. He was remembering certain items. He certainly remembered how to use a gun. I'll tell you that. And he definitely, I believe that I was reading that Bub was actually, they feel that he was maybe part of the military that was first dispatched to the area when the zombie outbreak occurred. And of course they said he was a Marine that died. And then he was reanimated due to the zombie outbreak. And so that would have been how to explain his familiarity with firearms. But we all remember Bub. We love Bub. I would have loved to see him get his own movie just to kind of see what was going to go on. Or maybe before he became a zombie. Who knows? I would have loved to see that. So, yeah, I think that's it. That's it for my list. So I'm going to swing around to Chris this time and ask him which horror movie characters would he have loved supporting. It's got to be supporting horror characters. It cannot be a main character that you would love to see get their own movie, or maybe you would have wished they would have.
There's so many, and you see these movies and you think he's the best part of the movie, and he's dead halfway through it, or he's the sort of sidekick. You guys remember Deep Rising with Treat Williams and Famke Janssen?
Yep.
Kevin J. O'Connor. He played that very witty, cowardly sidekick of Treat Williams, the mercenary pirate guy. And he's got the best lines in it. There's a scene they're going up the elevator and the ship's been taken over by sea monsters. And they hear this. The Muzak is playing in the background, and they hear this big roar, and one of the bad guys says, "What's that?" And Kevin J. O'Connor says, "It's the girl from Ipanema," referring to the music. It's just a classic line, but he's terrific in everything he does. Not a horror movie, but I just had the opportunity to watch the Transporter movies again. Big Jason Statham fan. The inspector, the guy from France, who befriends him after the first one, Frances Berliand. He's just a terrific character. He's a chef, he's a cook, and deep down, if you watch him closely, he's a good cop. And then the third one is a favorite of mine, and one that I am just cringing that they've never did do anything more with her. But in one of the Resident Evil movies, I forget which one, she plays Ada Wong, Bing Bing Lee. And never again do we see her in any more Resident Evil movies. You remember her as Jason Statham's love interest or eventual love interest in The Meg, which came out about 3 or 4 years ago. So Bing Bing Lee is Ada Wong. Tragedy, we haven't seen more of her, but maybe there's still time.
You never know. And, I'm hoping that some of these that we all mentioned, maybe somebody out there is listening and they do make a movie based on some of the choices that we come up with. All right. I'm going to swing to HorrO and Dexter next.
All right. I guess this is a little complicated because I guess it's always depending on what you consider sidekick, supporting, and so forth. Because one of my first kind of thoughts was a recent movie, 12 Hour Shift. And I guess her compadre there is too involved in the movie. So I guess I can't go with that one. So I was thinking a little bit further back. And again, maybe this one's some difficulty, but Fright Night, Evil Ed, certainly an interesting character.
Nice.
Some comedy there. Maybe see things from his perspective, or maybe even at a different time. And I remember, like you said, maybe a different movie. A character that I love, thinking back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is Sheriff Hoyt. And I guess the 1990 versions of the movie or so forth, the remakes, if you want to call them. I forgot the guy's name who played him, but he was awesome, and he certainly plays that role terrifically. And I guess a little bit of a twist on it, not really a movie, but more of a show. I kind of think of it because it's going to come back later as Dexter. Wouldn't it be interesting to see a whole series on his sister and things more from her perspective, and see how she basically misses everything, for the good or bad. But that might put her to shame. But yeah, I thought maybe seeing things from her perspective and maybe why she misses all Dexter's cues there. But I thought that's interesting, and she's a great character by herself.
Definitely. Fantastic choices. Sheriff Hoyt. I was thinking of him. I love that you chose him because I had my eye on him, and then I was like, well, let me just I threw around some names and stuff. I thought maybe somebody else might pick him. I think it was Arlie Ermy that portrayed him. Also memorable from Full Metal Jacket there.
Yes.
But he was so good. Oh my goodness. Just a great actor. And he portrayed Sheriff Hoyt to excellence for sure. And I would love to see the Dexter idea with Dexter's sister. That would be really interesting. Definitely. So, all right, Monster Mash Ken, what do you got?
Don't say my name all smart aleck like, all right?
Dude, that's all I got for you.
Have
Monster
a have a little respect for the name.
Mash.
No, I have a couple of them actually. I'd love to see like a Hellraiser with the symbiotes, the Cenobites, sorry, the symbiotes, the Cenobites, kind of like maybe different themes there with it. We had the Chatterer on there and whatnot. I'd love to see kind of their own little deal, without Pinhead. Maybe that's something that would be kind of cool. I actually had this conversation with somebody on Twitter today, which is random, but I recommended, they asked about Blade 3, and this one was when we saw the other Hunters with Ryan Reynolds, and it was Hannibal King and Abby Whistler, who is Whistler's daughter, come in, and I felt like Blade 3, they just really forced that into the movie with these characters, and they were funny at times, but it was the worst of the movies, the three movies. But I would have loved to see maybe a spin-off of just them, in this, because they are comic book characters, or even to go a little bit further, even just go with Abraham Whistler, maybe his story before he meets Blade, because he was a vampire hunter. He was doing it a long time. So I think that would be kind of cool. And I had a third one, and I don't remember what it was because this ginger beer is creeping up on me. But and it was really good too. I'm so disappointed. But anyway, that's a really good Sinister Six. I think some of these sidekicks or side characters that everybody learns to love, they just never, they get their little time in the sun and that's it. And we forget about them. So we'd love to see them come back and do something on their own or whatnot. But it's a really good subject, Muse. Thank you so much for sharing. On that note, let's move it on over to HorrO and the Promote Horror Rundown.
All right, fun stuff there. Making me think too much. Dexter's no help with that one. So last week we did a remake, so this week we're probably not going to do one. So I have something planned for next week, an idea of the movie I'm going to tackle next week. So with that, I instead want to kind of pick up kind of on the theme of last week's show. And we talked a lot about true stories and how that turned some true stories into horror movies that were kind of fake. But another theme that I mentioned, well, actually was one of the recommendations I made last week, was to check out Night Stalker on Netflix. And it just kind of
I almost
Piqued
did
my
last night.
curiosity
I
there.
almost did last night, but I ended up watching, or not last night, a couple nights ago. But yeah, almost. Because I thought about you, brother. I thought about you.
You should have. You should have. You just so you know who's stalking your neighborhoods here. Um, but to kind of go with that, I just find it very interesting. I spend more time watching fake horror and the movies that we talk about every week and so forth. But it's not often that I sit and watch one of these documentaries, and kind of mentioned this one, and just how creepy this dude is and how just vile, and it's different when you're watching something, you're seeing what somebody's doing, and he's just so bad, and it's like, watch movies, you turn them off and you're like, oh, that's fake. But this guy is just bad and evil, and just doing real life evil things that Chris probably saw plenty of. And it just kind of made me think. So, as if you watch Netflix, after you watch a show, it wants to give you recommendations and so forth. So, now on my queue there, I have all these other, documentaries or serial killer, this and that come up. And I'm like, and it kind of made me think, and I'm looking at it. And right now there's about 11 documentaries on serial killers right now on Netflix, and then there's a ton more on Amazon. And I'm just thinking, what is it? And it just kind of had several thoughts come to mind. And first of all, why I wanted to watch it, and then what makes these outlets want to show so many. I mean, why do we need all these shows about serial killers? And what does that really say about us? What does it say about us watching this? Because again, it's different from watching Freddy Krueger, who you turn it off as fake, and so forth. But then you watch this, and hey, that really happened. He really did kill all those people, and did this and chopped up these people and molested these people over here. And so like, why do we need to see this? And also another question that often comes up when bad events happen is, why do we have to further make this person famous? They did bad things. Why are we making them more famous? Whether they're still alive or not, or they might not even know, or maybe they were part of it. Sometimes you see documentaries where they're part of it and they get asked questions and so forth. So again, well, why do we have to expand on them? Why do we have to give them a platform? Do they they obviously don't deserve this. They've done bad things. We lock them up and you think we're throwing away the key, but no. When it was Marilyn Manson, everybody wanted to know more about him. When it was Ted Bundy, everybody wants to know more about him. Go talk to them. Netflix got me, so I watched another one. I watched one called "Confession of a Killer," and this is a guy that was down in Texas, and they he may or may not have killed somebody, and they kind of brought him in and whatever, and then for his own reasons or whatever, he kind of got suckered in, and he started all of a sudden confessing to all these crimes that he didn't commit, but he was just racking them in like it was a good thing. And he was there with the Rangers and so forth, and going through the story, and just it was, they were just bringing in policemen and from all kinds of areas in the country, and he's just like, yeah, I did that one, yeah, I did that one. And then there's a big, wider, expansive story there. But again, they were showing live footage of him and live footage of him talking. I'm just like, sitting there thinking about some of these questions, and now that I've started this, now I can't turn it off. I need to know more about this guy, but I never knew about this guy. I never knew about the Night Stalker guy before. I assume there's evil in the world, and you see it. And I also watched things like Dateline and stuff like that, but often those things aren't really serial killer things. Those are more like husband turning on wife, wife turning on husband, and once that kind of plays out, you kind of see why. No, they should not have done what they did, but you kind of see the setup there. But these things are serial killers, and like there's, like I said, there's a whole bunch of them. The Ripper, Inside the Criminal Mind, Interview with a Serial Killer. I mean, just turn on Netflix, turn on Amazon. It's full of them. So what I'm just gonna kind of throw out there, I'm gonna probably start with Chris because he can probably give more input than us. But just kind of your thoughts on do you watch these shows? Have you watched these kind of things? Do you like them, not like them? And why do you think that we need to see this, or and do you actually consider it horror? I mean, this is real life horror, but do you also throw it into the same universe as, you know, the horror that we watch? So I'll throw it to Chris and kind of touch on any of that you would like.
Yeah, you know, it is horror. It is real life, and you see it from the investigative end of it. You see it from talking to these guys. You see it from interviews done by them from law enforcement, and you realize that one thing they have is an incredible sense of being able to masterfully manipulating the audience. James Dobson, who has a Christian radio ministry, was able to interview Ted Bundy. And Ted Bundy appears to give a very, very sincere interview. Nothing out of Ted Bundy's mouth should be looked at with any kind of honesty. It's complete manipulation. Geraldo Rivera interviewed Ted Bundy before he was executed. Ted Bundy went to town on him. Geraldo Rivera had no clue that he was never in charge of that interview. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's probably on YouTube. Look up Geraldo Rivera's interview with Ted Bundy and just watch Ted Bundy take total control. And when these guys do take total control, the deceit, the lies, they'll tell you some very moving stories. None of them are true. And they will, I mean, all these people get marriage proposals once they're on death row. Remember when you dive into these guys that nothing out of their mouth is true. It's complete manipulation. That's what they do. That's how they get the girl in the car. That's how they gain people's trust. And I know I can tell you in the FBI, talking to a lot of friends I have in the behavioral science unit or behavioral analysis unit, they are very, very, very careful of anything they do, any kind of papers they do, any kind of studies they do, any kind of teaching they do, that at no point do they ever want these guys in jail to get wind of the fact that we're actually talking about them and we're actually interested in them. That would be floating their boat so much, and they would see that as a victory. But it is horror. It is true life horror. They're out there. They'll continue to be out there. There's no way you're going to stop them. You just got to hope it stays rare and that you're never in their path. But believe me, manipulation, they are masters at. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, just wanted to know your thoughts on serial killers and you know what it is that we're watching. Kind of you kind of, I like your perspective on it, and kind of flip that around a little bit.
Yeah, you know what we watch on the movie is pretty good because there are always the smartest guy in the room, and they study you more than you study them, and they're very relationship driven. Most guys are results driven, goal driven. Most females are relationship driven. Well, these serial killers, they're relationship driven. Any little facial feature that you have that's a little, they pick up on. They make good fortune tellers. They say, I know exactly what's going on in your life. They're great. But these guys are, if you can imagine, 100% into the relationship, in that they know what you want. They know what they expect. They know the answers you want. And some people have it, some people don't. And I tell you, most psychopaths aren't killers and criminals. Maybe only 1% are. That's a scary thing. They usually run for office, but that's another story. But, you know, I got to give the movies credit. They portray them very well. Very rarely do you see the serial killer as a maniacal person who doesn't have any social graces. So I'd be the first one to get on Hollywood and say, oh, no, they don't cut it. They do a pretty good job at it. And I tell you, when I was at Quantico for many, many years, Hollywood people would come all the time. And they'd go to our behavioral science unit and they'd ask a lot of questions. They did their research. So a lot of times the stuff you're seeing isn't just a director or a writer's idea of what happened, but it's their idea of what happened after conversing with the investigators who actually talked to these guys and researched these guys. They're very informed on this for some reason. Now, they should be more informed on a lot of other things too. They're not. But I got to give them a little bit of credit when it comes to serial killers. And one of the reasons I think it is coming to see us at Quantico when I was there. We're going to give you one fascinating day of your life. It's not like going to the courthouse and plowing through records and talking to prosecutors. Oh, we're going to show you stuff. And you're never going to forget it. And I think Hollywood loves to come there because, believe me, they're going to have a great time when they do. So.
I kind of reflect what you were saying kind of when I was watching Confession of a Killer, because that was kind of, he had a relationship there with the sheriff that was very much that way. But I want to go to Muse and kind of chime in on what you think.
Well, I got to echo Chris for sure. Some of the most notorious serial killers, you hear things said again and again. They seemed like a regular, everyday, next door neighbor guy that everybody knew, or maybe didn't know, maybe quiet, just not somebody that you would necessarily think was going to be murdering tons and tons of people, or had people in their freezer, or eating people, or whatever was going on. I've watched quite a few serial killer based movies, and I'm a huge fan of true crime TV. And I'll tell you what, I think some of the stuff with Dahmer has really been, I don't know why I watched the stuff before bed, but I mean, I didn't sleep well after seeing some of the stuff with Dahmer. It just, oh man, I will never understand the love affair that folks have, when they get the love letters in prison and things like that. It's a whole nother level of crazy that I'm glad I'm not in touch with. But it does go on. I've heard a lot of that as well. But I've been meaning to check out. It's funny you guys were talking about Night Stalker, because I almost turned it on last night too. And I was like, well, it's getting late. Do I really want to watch this before bed? Because I see everybody talking about it. And I'm weird like that. I'm a very late night person. So generally most of what I'm watching is before bed. But because I know I'm not going to be able to put this stuff on when my husband's awake. So he's going to be like, what is this? Why are we watching this? I love torturing him, but I kind of spared him there. But it's definitely one I want to look into. I'm really interested in I don't know if you would say interested, but I mean, I think it's I guess people just kind of wonder what in the heck is going on with these guys and their thought processes and things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, these guys seem like, like they could seem downright charming, just like Ted Bundy. And, even Jeffrey Dahmer seemed, from what I understand of his friends and neighbors, was quite a normal guy, and seemed normal, but was anything but. And you've got John Wayne Gacy, who I think he was a children's entertainer at one point, and played like a clown, which is even more alarming. Just like but just totally disturbing stuff. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of true crime TV. I think the missing persons things probably get to me the most, because I can't even imagine what it must be like to have a family member missing. We actually went through that with my husband's brother that was missing for a while, and it turned out he had passed away. But we were a wreck for months trying to figure out what had happened to him. Nobody could figure out where he went, and he hadn't contacted anybody. And we just got a small taste of what families go through for decades that may or may not ever get any answers about what happened to their loved ones. And I think that that's why those types of true crime shows always really bother me the most. And serial killers definitely as well. But I think there's I think that people have a natural curiosity because they're trying to figure out what is going on, with the thought process there. So that's just my 2 cents. So I will hand it to Ken.
Yeah, it's there's so much content there to get into, and I think what fascinates me the most is why, quote unquote, why are the normal quote unquote people so fascinated with it? That's the scary thing. Why do we dig into, and why do we want to watch it? Why do we want to learn more about it? That's what scares me. I don't know if it scares me, but it just makes me wonder. Like, it's part of human nature. We're humans. We want to see violence. We want to see hardcore blood and killing, and that's just who we are. We're natural killers, I guess, deep down, hunters. I don't know, but I mean, some of us are sicker than others, I guess. I don't know. But one thing that just to circle back with the Richard Ramirez thing in the Cecil B Hotel, which was in Hollywood there, where he brought some of the victims. That was always something that kind of was interesting to me because when I first got into podcasting, I did this little segment about it. And I was talking about this woman, I forgot her name, the weird footage of her just acting really crazy by the elevators or whatever. But then I looked into it more. I didn't realize that there's so many weird things that happened there, where a lot of suicides there and whatnot. But the Ramirez thing that jumped out to me, he would bring his his potential victims there or whatever. It's very calculated, these killers, and some of them are sloppier. We see it in Dexter, how careful you have to be, and then they want to get caught in their own way. I think they want to keep doing this, and but it's fascinating to me why people like the normal people go and they're so intrigued by it and they want to know more about it. And you look at even podcasts like the true crime podcast. A lot of these are serial killer stuff, and even Serial, the podcast that kind of launched all podcasts, Serial, which is, if you haven't listened to that, that's amazing. It's crazy just how a killer can keep killing and doing this, and whatever it is they do with the bodies, are some are sicker than others. I don't know. It's crazy to me. To be honest, I've never really been like infatuated with it or like wanted to look into it more than. That's why I wasn't really big on watching the Ramirez thing. I was just like, won't watch it. Maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. But some people like it, and that's what's kind of scary to me. Anyway, that's a long explanation from all three of us. But go ahead, HorrO. I'll throw it back over to you.
Yeah. Well, just kind of continue with what you said, and then I'll jump to the news. Is that's exactly what the kind of the point is. Is we have all this content on all these evil people. And it's just crazy. It's just why, when you kind of look at this, maybe why you need to see it, or maybe why you're curious. But the fact that it is on Netflix, the fact that it is on Amazon, you bring up a great point. The fact that it's on every other podcast, it's kind of scary. You think about so many people absorbing all this kind of content, and who's getting the right ideas and who's getting the wrong ideas. What kind of content are we putting out here? But anyway, we fascinating subject, and I guess we can come back to that another time. So I'll just run through a couple of quick news hits here, so that we date ourselves all here. 40-year anniversary Steelbook will be released for Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, part 2, coming March 23rd. So yeah, I guess we had the 40th anniversary of the original, and now 40th anniversary of the second one. So that can kind of date yourself there. Some people may have seen this movie, a kind of a festival film, limited release film, but save yourselves. I know that some people who did see it really liked it. Looks to be a TV series. It looks like that might be coming our way soon, or at least is in the works. A trailer has been released for a movie called Safer at Home, and that will be released on February 26th via VOD, digital, and theater. And kind of the point there is that it kind of plays on the themes that we've all had for the last year or so. Let's see. Looks, and I'm sure Muse is excited about this, it looks like we might actually get a legit, as our man John likes to say, legit, sequel to Cloverfield. It looks like that is in the works, as opposed to some of these movies that are maybe not, that are maybe in the universe of. It looks like a legit sequel is in the works for that movie, so that will be interesting. Again, in news that only I care about, Fear the Walking Dead will return for its second half of the 6th season in April. For those who want to get prepared for the upcoming Saw movie, the first 7 Saw movies are now on HBO Max. If you want to get prepared or review, here's exciting news. You can pre-order now the limited edition Hunky Boy Ultimate Edition of Psycho Gorman. Yes, please do so.
Yes.
I know Ken is. I'm sure Chris is. We're all hunky boys here, and we all want that version of PG. After its limited theater release, Wrong Turn has been announced to come out on February 23rd, and that'll be on VOD, digital, and DVD. So February 23rd, we will actually get to see Wrong Turn for those who didn't venture to the theaters to see that. And I'll wrap it up with my recommendation, which is A Nightmare Wakes, which comes to Shudder on Thursday. This is for, I guess, you Mary Shelley fans. This is a little bit of a different telling or telling of her as she's creating her Frankenstein story. So if you're kind of into Mary Shelley or Frankenstein, it might be of interest to you. Others, I don't know how much you'll enjoy it. But yeah, that's the news, and now we can go back to watching Night Stalkers and Crazy Serial Killers.
Excellent segment. I love talking crazy stuff. And we're going to talk about our movie, They Reach, with Chris the Creature. Go ahead, Chris. Let's take it away with the creature feature of the week.
They Reach, yes. And in a moment, you will hear from three of the actors and actresses in this movie who really make this movie, and very character-driven story, because if I just recap the plot to you, you're going to see a mess that can't work. But the reality is it does work, and it's a very character-driven movie. It's not a fair comparison to talk about Psycho Gourmet when we're talking about some adolescent youths who get involved in more that they should be able to handle. Different tone in this movie. They Reach, originally, when we put it on, is set in 1969, when we see a very horrible, scary backstory. The backstory will be returned to later on, and if you thought it was scary when you first saw it, it gets infinitely scary to see what actually happened when the blanks are filled in. Jump forward 10 years, 1979, beautiful year. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a baseball fan, the Pirates win the World Series, Ken Dryden retires, and this movie is set. When we get through with that backstory, a short 3 or 4 minute scary possession, bloody thing, heartwarming really, we meet our three protagonists. They're kids. They're, 13, 14 years old. They're geeks. They're nerds. They're likable. But when we first meet them, Jessica, who's played by Mary Madeline Rowe, is just a beautiful young lady, and she's just been through the ringer. She has just had a family tragedy. She is coping with the death of her brother. She's scared. She's vulnerable. She doesn't know how her family is going to be put back together after this great tragedy. And you can see the uncertainty in her. You can see the anger in her. And she bursts out of the house and goes to buy a bunch of junk from an antique store because she thinks she does science projects, and a lot of the stuff she can use as a science project. Well, we meet a really weird guy who sells the antiques, and we don't mention him much, but when you watch the movie, pay attention to this weird antique dealer and ask yourself, what's going on here? Because we'll revisit him later on as well. Everything here is revisited later on, so nothing's going away. And then the magic occurs. Her two friends come over. Cheddar, who's played by Eden Campbell, and Sam, who's played by Morgan Chandler. And you'll see them in just a second here. It's a very tender moment because when they knock on her door, they're scared too. They don't know what's happened to their friend. Well, they know, but they don't know if this great tragedy is going to affect their friendship. They don't know what to say. And who does? There is nothing to say. And it's a very tender moment because within maybe a minute, they're together again. The trio is a trio again. And these three science geek nerds are together again. And they are really the highlight of this movie, and they are what makes the movie go on. It's tender moments, it's heartwarming, it's witty, it's funny, but keep in mind, we've got a bloody, gory movie coming up. And these two are going to be merged together and done very masterfully by the director, Silas Dahl. And we'll talk to him about that in a moment. Now, unfortunately, for this wonderful, effervescent, refreshing trio that we like so much, doom and gloom is coming, and it's coming quickly in the form of a demon, in the form of possession, in the form of people getting shredded, in the form of family tragedy. And these three are going to have to figure out what's going on, how to battle it, because it's much more than it's happening to everybody else. It's clear early on that if they don't take care of this thing, whatever it is, and they're going to find out exactly what it is in about an hour after the movie starts, it's going to get them. And it's going to get everybody around them. And you see this demonic force getting closer by the people it engulfs. I say it engulfs, it actually shreds them. It's like a blender. It's like a supernatural blender that just shreds you. And there you go. You're all over the wall. And it is just horrific to think that it's coming for these three kids because we like them. They're neat. If you were 15 years old, you'd want these kids as friends. They're nice. They're smart. They're a little insecure. They're geeks. And maybe a lot of us horror movie fans can relate to that. Now, they're going to go full force into battling this thing, not because they're sort of curious about it, because it's obvious that it's coming for them. And they need to figure out what it is and how to stop it. And it doesn't look too encouraging. They're going to find out what happened 10 years ago. They're going to talk to a priest who was there during this backstory. And it's going to be not very encouraging. And it's there's a showdown coming. There's a whole lot of people going to die before the showdown. And it just breaks our heart because these three teenagers we like them so much. And the three teenagers are Jessica, who's played by Mary Madeline Rowe, who's just terrific. She's the, I guess, lead protagonist. There's a character named Cheddar, played by Eden Campbell, who's wonderful. Now, pay a lot of attention to Eden Campbell, because I'm going to ask Eden about this in just a minute or two. But she's incredibly more significant in this movie than what it first appears. But if you want to see a quarterback to this little team, Eden's going to be it. And just watch very closely, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then Sam. Sam is played by Morgan Chandler. And Sam is terrific. Sam is all into this group, but he's 13, 14 years old. And you know what happens to young boys when they're 13 or 14 years old? Relationships might change a little bit, especially with the opposite sex. And I'm not going to tell you too much about that. You'll see it. But I tell you, there's a Burt Lancaster, Deborah Kerr moment in this. And I know I'm older than a lot of you guys. Hit Turner Classic Movies, see the From Here to Eternity, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's the weird part of this movie, and I'm not going to say too much after this statement, is you got this really fun side to it, and the evil just comes in. And the two, Silas Dahl does this together so brilliantly, it works. And it probably really pulls us in. And the tragedies that you'll see, the heartbreaking moments, you're going to feel them that much more, because these aren't just sorority gals in a cabin in a hot tub. Although we need to do one of those movies real fast. I'm going through withdrawal. But I'm not going to say anything more, because in just a second, we're going to hear from these three stars and Mr. Silas Dahl.
Excellent review as always, Chris. And yeah, I agree. Let's get that hot tub movie into the show sometime soon. Anyway, let's check in with our guest. We'll be right back, everybody. Sit tight.